In the year 622, a new religion emerged out of the Arabian Peninsula. Within a few years, Arab Muslim armies had conquered most of the Middle East. Mizrahi Jews found themselves referred to by an Arabic word, dhimmi.
A dhimmi, or a dhimma, depending on the pronunciation, is a tolerated people. It's the people of the book, Christians and Jews, people who worship, practice the Bible. And according to Islam, this is a group that's supposed to be protected. What that means is, as Islam conquered the entire Middle East, North African region and killed people in the name of Islam if they would not convert, the Jews and Christians would be spared their lives. However, they always had to be both physically and metaphorically inferior. For example, a Jew could not ride a horse because then his head would be higher than that of a Muslim. Jews could not build a synagogue higher than a mosque.
All houses in Yemen, all houses in Yemen, I mean the Jewish houses, must be lower, far lower than the Muslims. If, God forbid, one of the houses is a little bit higher than the of the Muslims, it will be pulled down.
You see, the dhimma, as I said, is juridical. It's very precise, but it has also economic, political, and social repercussions. And there are many of them. One, for example, the Jews and the Christians, by the way, had to wear special items of clothes in order to differentiate themselves. For example, the yellow patch. That's not a Nazi invention. It was invented back in the 8th century, and the Jews and the Christians were forced to wear it. The Jews and the Christians could not ride the horse, because horse is a noble animal. Only Muslim can. Jews and Christians had to ride the donkey or to walk on foot. And Jews and Christians could not build any house of prayer, new one. And even if they wanted to refurbish the old ones, they had to have a special permission. And even when they got permission, it could not be higher than the nearest mosque, in order to demonstrate exactly the point that Islam is supreme and nothing can be seen to compete with it. That's the issue.
This whole idea of dhimmi is permeated in Arab culture. It goes all the way back to the 7th century. In some Arab countries, it was more important, like in Yemen, for example, or in Morocco, more significant than in Egypt or in Iraq.
Jews were always at the mercy of whoever the ruler was at the time. If it was a generous, kind, democratic, so to speak, ruler, then the Jews even made it to government posts. And you just really always felt like an inferior, I wish I could say only second-class citizen. It felt more like 10th class, at least, citizen. Constantly trying to compliment the Arab, trying to minimize yourself, you know. Trying to ingratiate yourself to the individual or the community of Arabs.
The meaning of that, dhimmi, that you have to pay every year for your living if you want to live. If you want me to guard you, I mean the imam, the government, if you want to continue living as a Jew, you are dhimmi. Dhimmi must pay special tax for his living.
The status of dhimmi, which means the protected people, and applied equally on Jews and Christians, was not always uniformly and equally applied on all lands of Islam. And that law of the dhimmi under Islamic law sometimes was abused of for the wrong, and sometimes Jews got a much better status, in fact, than what was prescribed by the Sharia.
Even when dhimmi laws were not rigidly enforced, the culture of dhimmi, of minority submission, still shaped attitudes toward Jews.
My grandfather was a very famous lawyer, but he would go to the shuk to buy some food, and the shuk whoever, the vegetable clerk or whatever, would say to him, "Are you a Jew?" And he would say yes. They would demand his money. If he wouldn't give all of his money, they would beat him up.
When I used to walk in the street, little children used to run after me and throw stones at me and calling me, "You are a Jew, you are a traitor," and they threw stones at only little kids.
So we're able to peek through the shutters, and I will never forget the scene of thousands of people in the streets shouting death to the Jews and having big banners and signs, and they were, lifting their fists. I was very fearful, but there was nothing really that we could do except wait until the riot was over.
I was born in Morocco, in the city of Fez, which used to be the capital city of Morocco over many centuries. What I remember from my childhood, because I was there until the age of 13 or 13 and a half, was that I grew up in fear. That's the most striking thing. In fear because every time somebody ran up the stairs, my mother used to run and lock the door. I always asked why. She said, "Oh, the Arabs make Arabs." And then when I grew up, I examined historically, then it turns out in 1912, there was a big uprising in Fez, and a couple of hundred Jews were massacred by the Arabs, Muslims, in Morocco. And since then, the Jews are living together and they are very much afraid.
I was in school with one of my best friends, Menyawi. We were real close. He's a Muslim Egyptian. One day we were playing in the field and he turned around and told me, "حيجي يوم حيذبح كل اليهود." One day we will slit the throat of all the Jews. I was shocked. He was one of my best friends and I couldn't understand it. So this is the contradiction we faced at that time in Egypt when I grew up. The good times and the very bad times. The fear and the prosperity.
While Jews were second-class citizens under Muslim rule, living under Christian persecution was often worse. Many Jews found refuge and relative tolerance in Islamic lands after Christians expelled them from Spain. In modern Middle Eastern cities, Jews were an integral part of the social fabric. Baghdad in the 1920s, for instance, was nearly 40% Jewish, the New York City of the Middle East.
And I remember very well Baghdad. Remember the river? My family used to live in northern Baghdad. It was a very nice neighborhood. And we had very good relations with the neighbors.
Well, I remember the River Nile and the pyramids. I remember my friends and my school teacher. And I remember especially